Okay, we are continuing with our rather large World War II unit. Rather large World War II unit. We're going to be talking about life on the home front and then the U.S. response to in the Pacific, where we left off. The Japanese have just bombed Pearl Harbor. The United States, they are advancing in the Pacific theater, obviously with the U.S. military crippled or at least extremely weakened in the Pacific theater. Japan has kind of reached its zenith in terms of its control of the Pacific, controlling all of those areas in red. But we're not done yet. We are not done yet. We have a quick little aside here, life on the home front, and we want to keep in mind in all countries, in all of these countries, all of these nations, we're not like fighting, when we maybe think of the war in Iraq or the war in Afghanistan, where our day-to-day lives don't change that much. And it's certainly right, like we've had soldiers in abroad during my lifetime, and during a significant portion of a lot of your lifetime as well. That has not really changed our lives that much. Certainly to a certain extent, right? I think we all maybe know some people that have served in Iraq or Afghanistan, served abroad in these wars. But whether or not it's really changed how I lived my day-to-day life outside of potentially seeing people that say, yeah, we support the troops. Of course, it comes up in politics from time to time, but it's not the same as what we're talking about in World War II. Nations, all of these nations are committing to total war. And so the entire society, from how decisions are made in the government to what is produced at factories to how people act in day-to-day life, is going, and what sort of jobs they are doing is very much changed based on World War II. So factories are converted to make wartime products. For example, very famously, car factories became tank factories and airplane factories and military truck factories. Instead of making the nice new Jeep Wrangler for a consumer, they're making Jeeps for soldiers that are getting shipped abroad, or they're becoming ship factories, things like that. We're not going to be making a bunch of cargo civilian ships. We're going to be making battleships and aircraft carriers. Women took on roles that were previously reserved for men, and we have here the very famous Rosie the Riveter, We Can Do It, where women are going into factories and are working at jobs that were traditionally reserved for men. They're doing jobs in the military that, not necessarily fighting on the front lines, but doing support roles, being nurses, doing things that is helping the military, and other jobs at home where all of our soldiers are fighting in Europe or in the Pacific theater. Women are taking some of those jobs at home. The governments are rationing, which means limiting food and supplies, coffee, gasoline, things that are needed for the war effort. For example, you were only allowed to use so much gas, and you weren't allowed to have any more. There was just a limit. You had a ticket during World War II. You had a ticket, and that was all the gas that you were allowed to get per week or per month. And if you wanted more, tough luck. And finally, and this is important, we're going to get into this a little tomorrow, propaganda campaigns degraded enemies, meaning we make them see and appear worse, and pushed patriotism, nationalism, pride in your country. This caused fear and prejudice against various various ethnic groups. And for example, in the United States, there was a lot of prejudice against Japanese Americans during this time. Obviously, in Germany, there's a lot of prejudice against Jewish people. There's a lot of prejudice and kind of rally around the flag of the country is great, we are great, and this group is a bad group. That's happening kind of all over the place at this time. So we are going to turn to talk about the United States in the Pacific and what some of the more famous battles or engagements that occurred in the Pacific theater. One of those is called the Doolittle raid, and this happened early in 1942. Some B-25, so Let me show you. So yeah, maybe you've seen these at air shows, but B-25s look a lot like this. All right, B-25s. B-25 bombers snuck into the range of Tokyo aboard an aircraft carrier, the USS Hornet, and bombed the city. The bombs they didn't do much damage, but it showed that it was possible. It was basically it's possible to attack their capital. And I think that we can imagine if we were at war with somebody and they can bomb New York City, or they can bomb Orlando, or they can bomb San Francisco, that is going to be a statement, even if it doesn't do that much damage, about the military capabilities of our adversaries, right? Like if they can bomb Tokyo, that is a big deal. We're going to talk about a couple of battles. You do need, these are pretty famous battles. You're going to need to have an idea.